Hello and welcome to another training session with Artisan Realty. Today's topic is things you never learned about in real estate school, the art of showing houses. In my career, I've been through more than 10,000 houses. About 8,000 of those times I had people with me when we're walking through the houses. And I've learned specifically how people react to certain ways of showing the property, certain things that happen, meeting owners and properties. And I've learned the kind of the best way or the most artistic or successful way to show properties to, or better said, to allow properties to show themselves off to buyers. And we're going to explore that today as we go through this PowerPoint, probably about 25 minutes. Again, cool new ways to let the houses sell themselves, different way of looking at it. A lot of real estate shows, HGTV, all those kind of things. They have the lady with the big hat or the obnoxious real estate agent that talks all the time during the showing. Someone who goes back and challenges the buyer or seller. What do you think of this? How about that? How about this? You're going to buy it? All that kind of stuff. Terribly unsuccessful tactics in the real world. We're going to take a look at the real estate world, what a successful real estate agent does when they show properties or they allow the properties to show themselves. In a nutshell, if you're showing houses and the people aren't buying them, if you're showing houses and the people aren't showing interest, you might be showing the wrong houses, which is a whole different training. But what's probably happening is that you are getting in the way. Your personality, your words, your sense of control of the situation, whatever is happening between you and the people who want to buy the house, you're probably in the way. It's probably there's probably an easier way to do it. Now, I'll ask you a very important question right now that will help you a lot. Forget about your buyers. I'm Dan Birdie, whatever your name is, out there in TV land. Do you need anybody to tell you if you like a house or not? If you think about that question, is there anything anybody can tell you that will make you like a property, like a house? Right? Probably the answer is no. So you start taking a look at the role of a real estate agent, and it isn't to get someone to like a house. But however, is there things that real estate agents can do when you're going through a house to make you not like the house? Certainly, the answer is yes to that. And could a real estate agent get in the way of you being able to see the house, see yourself in that house, feel the house, try that house on for size? And the answer again is yes. So a real estate agent is very able to ruin a showing. And there's really not much they can do to enhance the showing except to kind of get out of the way. And that's what we're kind of the theme of this particular training today. So life is like a show and tell game. The reason why people buy houses is rarely the reason that they state, what they're saying. What they're really doing is they're going into a house and they're seeing how it feels to them, and then they're projecting a little bit later down the road of how their visitors, their guests, people in their sphere of influence will react when they're in that house, when they walk through the property. A rich, successful person wants people to see that they're rich and successful. A good parents taking care of their children will want people to see that they're good parents taking care of their children in the property. It's just start playing with that idea and you'll kind of get a sense of maybe we're selling the wrong thing if we're just doing it at the very base. Hey, I'm going to make this guy buy this house no matter what kind of approach. Who goes through the front door? Very important first step or second step in this process here. I believe at any chance that you can possibly get that you can allow a buyer to walk through any door themselves, look out any window themselves without you going through first. It's really, really, really important. I think I had something called a seashell example on the prior slide, but I'll give it to you right now. Somebody goes out, little kids on the beach, one finds a really good seashell, they're running back to their parents, the kids stop and the kid with the seashell goes to another kid and say, hey, I found this seashell, but here, you can have it and you can show them. Well, as they're running back to the parents, that second kid's going to throw the seashell away. Why? Because he didn't find it. It's the thrill of the discovery, like a collector, someone who finds it, wants it, loves it, and that makes it that much more important. So letting someone discover the house, walk through the door first, discover the great kitchen. A good real estate agent should never say, come running back to the buyers and say, I've been in this house and you won't believe the kitchen's the best kitchen I've ever seen. You've literally just taken away the experience of going through the property, and you've hurt your ability to show and sell that property. David Knox, a good national sales trainer, a great national sales trainer, says people don't buy a house, they buy the feeling they get when they go into the house. So you want to preserve that feeling, kind of stand back. You don't want to go to a theater and see a play going on with some guy standing on the stage beside them. It's going to take away the entire experience. Same kind of thing happens when someone stands up at a movie theater, right? You get popcorn thrown at them. Sit down, get out of the way. So any chance you can get the buyer to go in first, take advantage of it. On a PhD level here, if you're going back on the second time and the buyer is going back maybe to show their family or something like that, hand them the keys at the sidewalk and let them walk up and open the door. It gives power. Imagine like your prom day or some point when you were 16, 17 years old and dad threw the car keys to you and said, take care of it, be careful. Think of the power you had to control your destiny in your hand. It's the same kind of thing when people walk through a property and walk up to a door. First one in loses is the way I look at it. So here's another important thought for you. What would happen if you were not there to show somebody a house and they went alone? I know all you control freaks out there are saying, oh, we can't let that happen. You know, God knows what would happen. It could be a real problem. But let me turn that around for a second. Let me make you a licensed real estate agent, and you can go out, make a phone call to a listing company, and make an appointment to go inspect a property yourself for your own personal use. Would you pick up the phone and call another real estate agent to go with you? No, you're saying absolutely not. You want to walk through by yourself because then you can take it in at your pace. You won't have anybody talking when you're there, right? So what would another real estate agent bring to the table? They would either go through it quickly and wait for you, you know, outside impatiently, go through it a lot slower, and you're waiting for them. They would have opinions and thoughts that are contrary to what you're thinking. It just would be a mess. And it's very important to understand that because that's what we do to our buyers. We don't understand our role to get out of the way. And you kind of have to have that conversation with the buyer. And the smartest thing you could possibly do when you're showing properties is to ask their permission to stay out of the way. Hey, I just want to unlock the door and let you guys go through and look at the house. Hope you don't take this as a sign of disinterest. What I really want to do is make sure that you can see the house at your own pace and take it all in. If there happen to be sellers in the property, I'll go chat with them so you can have more time to really take the house in. A very successful idea. But think about that idea. Blow it up a little bit in your head and think about what is your role and what a pain in the neck is it for you to be there because they have to schedule it when it's convenient for you and just, oh my God, we get in the way. Think about that. Upstairs or downstairs? Sounds like a silly question. Do you go upstairs first or downstairs first? But it's not a silly question. Again, let me go back to David Knox, my favorite sales trainer. David says that people purchase things because they want to move from pain to pleasure. And if you're going to walk into a two-story property and you go down the basement first, which some people may want to do, you're going to be finished in the basement. They're going to walk up 2 and sometimes 3 flights of steps in a row. You're going to have pain. So you don't want to do that, right? You want to go upstairs first, then you're going to glide down 2 flights of steps to go to the basement. If you have an opportunity to walk the outside prior to going in, it's a great idea. People fall in love with the environment, trees, nature before they fall in love with the house. And sometimes, in my personal case with one particular property, for example, I walked through a 24 tree apple orchard and then walked through the house, and I wanted that house regardless of its condition because I really like the grounds outside. So make a rule to tell the people, hey, just for I got bad legs. We're going upstairs. We're going upstairs first, and we're going to work our way down. See how they react to it. But it's a good idea. When you're outside, another important thing to remember when you're showing properties, when you're outside, say a suburban development like this, pause at the sidewalk, start a conversation, but point to the other houses on the street, point to the houses across the street. It's an important moment in time for people to take the house into consideration in its whole and to make some early decisions about whether they like it or not. Most people decide if they like a house from the time from the sidewalk to the front door. It's kind of contrary to what people think. They bought it because of the kitchen and the bathrooms. Kitchens and bathrooms add value, but they don't make someone want to love a house. Tension management, big mistake a lot of new real estate agents make, some old ones, but they try to create tension thinking that it's a sales tool, like saying things like this. Hey, you have to understand this is the biggest decision you're ever going to make in your life. This is the biggest purchase you're ever going to make in your life. In other words, scare them to death, freeze them in the tracks, the deer in the headlight kind of a thing. help them out a little bit, right? Let's help them out. Hey, buying this particular property is $40,000 as a down payment, $12,000 in closing costs, $21.60 a month for about 4.3 average years. That's how long you're probably going to be in this house. Most of the costs are offset by appreciations, tax deductions. Houses pay for themselves. Very few homeowners lose, even when they make a bad decision. Just chill, relax. You're just getting a roof over your head, right? We're not scaring them to death. Once a buyer understands that buying a house is more like trading dollars, especially renters to owners, than spending dollars, the tension level really declines and people feel more motivated to buy. I make a point to tell all the buyers I show houses that I love showing houses. This is fun. It's great. And I get them on my page and my level of just, this is fun. Let's go through the next house. This is great. I love this. This is really fun. And you can just see the relaxation coming in, and they can relax and take the house in and decide if they like it or not, which is really the only question I need answered from the buyers. Do you like this one or not like this one? Forget that. I go crazy sometimes when the buyers come in and they're running the shower and flushing the toilet. They don't know why they're doing it. They're just told they have to do that when they buy a house. The guys who come in with the flashlights and the measuring tapes and all that kind of stuff. Analytical approaches to an emotional decision, which is where I'm going shortly. So tell people you love showing houses. You'll have more success when you're showing properties, even if you don't. Let's see. So I kind of hinted at this one already, but think about this for a second. What percentage of buying a house is emotional? What percentage do you think is factual, based on facts? I'll let you think about that. Okay, time's up. You guessed it. The right answer, if you're going to sell houses, even if you don't believe it, is to assume that buying a house is a 100% emotional decision. In fact, it almost always is. What happens is it's an emotional decision, which is then underpinned by facts like low taxes, gas heat, not oil heat, the right school district, shorter commute, all that kind of stuff too. People will fall in love with the house, just like they fall in love with people. And believe me, when you think about people falling in love with people, that's rarely based on facts as well. Secret to selling a house to baby boomers. Baby boomers are in a different world, right? They might have gone through a divorce or staring right down the sight at retirement, paying tuitions, they're worried about pensions. They look at a house like a bank account. So here's a little trick. Let's say you're going to show a $300,000 house to a baby boomer. When you show up, you might want to sneak this in somehow. Hey, this 25-year-old house was first built for $80,000 in 1990, and then by the year 2000, these houses were selling for $150,000. Now they're all the way up to $300,000. It's been a great investment for every owner that's had it so far. You're going to speak the baby boomers language, okay, underpinning the value of that particular transaction. If it's a risky transaction, they really don't want to be in it. Another weird thing that happens when we're showing houses is some of our appointment centers and some inexperienced agents make a point to make sure that there's not two buyers at the house at the same time, when in fact that's the opposite. The best thing for a house, the best thing for buyers, the best thing for agents is to have two buyers at the house at the same time. It creates urgency. It creates people feeling they have to make up their mind quickly. Don't let the industry's attitudes about private showings interfere with your ability to create motivation when it's not there already. Transference, the word I came up with to describe what happens when people are in a neighborhood of similar type houses, but maybe each one's a little bit different. They're going to look at a bad house, say for example the one on the left, and see the houses that are surrounded, say potential good houses. And if there's a deck on the other houses, they're going to transfer it to this house and kind of see it there. If the landscaping is better at the houses across the street, they're going to see that on that particular house. It's kind of like magic, but it's only going to happen if you get that pause at the sidewalk to let people take it all in. The worst house in the neighborhood will look better if it's surrounded by good houses. A really good house is going to look worse if it's surrounded by bad houses, so be careful of what we can call reversed transference. Imagine that you were at a supermarket and you found a valuable item that you wanted to purchase, and you said, hey, how much is this, Mr. Mr. Person who works in a supermarket or the mall. And they said, well, we'll be glad to tell you that at the checkout. Come on over to the checkout. You're not going to go anywhere near the checkout, right? You're not going to make a decision to buy that item unless you know how much this item costs, right? Well, when people are walking through houses, it's very similar to that. You need to be able to, as a tool, as a salesperson tool, you need to be able to figure out a monthly payment roughly in your head. And there's a thing called a per thousand equivalent. Sounds tricky, but it really isn't. For example, 6% loan, 30 years is $6 per thousand. So if someone says, Dan, I want to buy this $200,000 house, what's the principal and interest payment on that? I can say 6 times 2, that's 12, that's $1,200 a month. And then I would take the taxes divided by 12 in my head, $2,400, that's $200. Say $1,200 for homeowners insurance, that's $100. So our $1,200 just went to $1,500. Your monthly payment for this property is $1,500. Then the people are able to make a buying, choosing decision when they're in the property and not at a later date. So if you don't know how to do that, I'll be glad to help you to walk it through it in your head the right way. But it's something you want to have as a skill when you're showing properties, if you're going to be selling properties. Time is like super glue. The longer someone stays in a property, the more likely they are to buy a house. Yesterday, I showed 7 houses to the same buyer. In one property, he sat down. The other 6 properties, he did not sit down. He wasn't tired. He was kind of like testing it out, feeling how he felt. He felt relaxed enough in that environment to sit down and try to enjoy that property. I gave him the time to sit down. I didn't walk toward the door and say, it's time to go. I sat down in a different chair in the same room. Never be the person to say it's time to go, we're late for the next appointment. You only need to sell one house. You don't have to worry about that next appointment if they're acting or giving signs that they want to buy that particular property. Never look at your watch, take the pressure off. Looking at a property for some people takes 3 minutes, for some people it takes a half an hour. You just have to go with the flow. Very important to understand that buying a house is both an emotional purchase, but then you need a rational or objective aspect of it as well. You're going to get something called buyer's remorse. If someone think about the emotional decisions that you will make. I think once while drunk in a jazz club, I watched someone accept a proposal from somebody, a marriage proposal, and the next day they had to take it back because it was an emotional response to something they really should have stopped and thought about. So the way to show a property and get both the emotional and rational buy-in is once someone says emotionally, hey, I like this house, I think we want to buy this house, say that's great, congratulate them on finding the house, and then go back and show them the house again. Sounds silly, but show them the house again. I would say something like, let me show you the house a second time, like a home inspector might see it, like an appraiser might see it. We're going to point out the objective things. Did you notice the rust on the heater? Did you see the spot in the master bedroom where you have to paint? Did you see the broken glass in the window? And we're going to give them both an emotional and a rational choice there. We're going to tie them all together. You won't have any buyer's remorse. You won't be subject to somebody's uncle coming along and looking at it again and saying, hey, did you see the rust on the heater? Now, if you do it the right way, they're going to say, oh yeah, Dan told us about that. We've got that factored in. Uncle Louie, thank you very much. So buying a property is, especially if there's a couple buying a property, the buying a property is not just what people say in front of you. There's a lot of things going on. A husband or a wife or partners can recognize when their partners are excited and interested in a property by the body language. It might be a half a second glance at each other. He might say, hey, she likes this one. I can tell she likes that one. I can tell he likes this one. All these things going on around you. And if you are a talkative, boisterous, overly involved agent, you're not going to give them the chance to have that communication. But your role, the question on the table here is your role is to get out of the way. Just let them have that conversation. I have a theory that a lot of decisions to buy properties are based in a room where people are in more than any other room in the house because we sleep, right? So the bedroom that you're going to sleep in my mind, is probably where people are going to decide that they're safe, they like this house, and they want to buy this house for that human need of shelter, right? That's why we buy houses, if you really boil it all down, shelter. So I never want to walk into a master bedroom with a couple or an individual. I want them to go in and feel kind of like the animal feelings that this is a safe place for them and they can make a buying decision. Is it the best home on the market? A lot of the traps we fall into is someone says, wow, Dan, great, thank you very much. You just showed me 3 great houses. When can we do this again? Another night, three. Yeah, you showed me three great houses. When can we do it again? And you're like, oh my God, they're never going to buy a house. They think I can come up with great houses like out of my hat. So you want to have this conversation with them. I'll just read it to you. Hey, just so you know, before we go look at houses tonight, of the 33 homes in the market, only 6 met your criteria for bedrooms and baths. Of those 6, 3 weren't on busy streets. After I show you these 3 homes, all we have are worse locations and worse choices and won't meet your criteria. Tonight, we're going to see the best 3 homes on the market. You can see what I just did. I framed the decision, right? If it's not this one, it's got to be one of the other 2. Just a different way of setting expectations. So be careful of that, especially when the buyers are using the internet now and choosing houses. It looks like there's a lot of great houses, but realtors have better tools to determine which ones to pick and which ones are more appropriate for the buyers. Are you opinionated? Tell you what, think about this. I'll just ask you straight up, number 2 here. Which is better? A single home or a condo? I know half of you just went into your corners. A bunch of people said condos. A bunch of people said single homes. The single home people said, I'll never want a condo. I don't like that condo fee. The condo people say, I never want a single home. I don't want all that maintenance responsibility. And what happens is a real estate agent in that single home corner is going to have a hard time selling a condo because of our opinions about condos. Also, the second one thing, busy streets or quiet streets, city or the country, a big house or a small home, an attached house or a detached house, this school district or that school district, big or small. All these things are in our heads. There's really not much we can do about them. But if you're going to be a successful real estate agent, just wipe that slate clean. You have no opinions about what's better, a single or a condo, a busy street or a quiet street. If somebody likes a house, get out of their way and let them buy it. I'm not saying that as a salesperson. I'm just saying that as a person. Our opinions will stop people from being able to make decisions that they want to make. You go to a busy street, knock on a door, ask somebody, do you own this house? Do you like it here? I love it here. It's my favorite house. I love it here. Go to somebody at a condo, same thing. Single house, same thing. Think about your prejudices. See if you can get them out of your house. Bite your tongue if you find yourself offering opinions that are your opinions as opposed to the buyer's opinions. The buyers are the ones who have to choose, not you. Sounding like a mean person there, but it's really to the buyer's best interest. I certainly wouldn't want someone else's opinions to affect the houses I buy. Now, there is a difference between giving information. I think my job is to help you make good decisions, but by giving you information. For example, I might say, this is a great house. I really like this house on a busy street. If you go to sell it again, it'll probably take 6 months and it'll probably sell for a little less than you expect, but you'll be able to buy it, a little less expensive right now. So there's good and bad. That's my way of selling houses on busy streets. People also buy houses for reasons different than they say. If someone raising a family says, I want to buy a house, a bigger house, they might really mean, I want to get away from my teenage kids. But they're not going to say that. So be careful of what the difference between what people say and what's really going on. I learned that lesson recently. Someone told me early on in a buyer's meeting that their sister just bought a house, and they looked at each other and said, we think we want to buy a house. And after the 7th or 8th house we got to, she walked into a kitchen, looked around the kitchen and said, this kitchen is nicer than my sister's. And guess what? They bought that house. They were never going to say that, hey, I'm in a sibling rivalry and I want a house better than my sister's, and darn it, if she buys another house, then I've got to buy another house. But in fact, that's what was really going on. So people will say one thing, they may even act without even understanding their motivations, but it's definitely good and bad reasons why people buy properties. Be very careful when you're working with buyers and they're choosing the houses off the internet. You're going to find a lot of comments when you go into properties that the pictures were too good. This house isn't that good. And if the buyers are picking and they're only looking at the good pictures, they may miss the great house with the bad photographer. You need to contribute your knowledge and your experience to the people when they choose the houses. Look for them as well as they look for themselves, especially now and moving into 2015. The buyers kind of think they know it all when they're on Zillow and Trulia and these other sites. But in fact, we have better ways to search. And having gone through all the numbers of houses we've gone through, we have a better idea of what the expectation will be when you get there. Say if it's a 100-year-old house, we know what the basement's going to look like. If the address is 1 or 100, we know it's probably going to be on a corner. If it's on a boulevard, we know it's probably going to be on a busy street. Things like that professional real estate agents understand. First-time buyers are a little bit different too. They really just need information. They hesitate when they find a house they like. They're always they always do this. They go home and they're going to make a list. What's the list? Well, let's see how much our groceries we pay for. How much do we pay for gasoline? What do we pay for utilities? Are we really going to be able to afford this this new and this purchase? They're going to go to their people they work with, their parents, their friends. Everybody's going to have an opinion. They're going to come to you so confused with hearing bad stories and things like that. So the way to handle buyers, first-time buyers, explain things. Don't go showing houses till you sat down and gone over how the monthly payment works and gone over what the tax breaks are for owning real estate, what the closing costs are, all the different aspects before you get them in that kind of crazy emotional decision. If you don't, what's going to happen is they're going to find a house and that first house is going to blow up as soon as the parents get involved and the friends get involved and the buddy who knows something about carpentry gets involved and all that kind of stuff too. If you communicate first, then show them houses, you're going to have a lot more success. You'll have success. You won't have success if you do it the other way. Second-time buyers are special too. So here's what second-time buyers need to know. Say this guy in the middle here, I'm going to look him straight in the eye. I'm going to say, Mr. Johnson, I want you to know, I understand you bought a house before. I understand you know what you're doing. Hey, my job is just to help you make good decisions in your real estate transactions. I'm here to help you. Let's go look at houses. They need affirmed the idea that they know what they're doing. They don't want to be treated like those first-time buyers. Again, they want to be treated a little bit different with a little bit more respect. And then after that happens, then you can kind of move forward having understood each other's roles as you do it. If you ever hear an objection, somebody walks into a property and says, these bedrooms are too small. Just kind of a general rule of thumb. Most smart real estate salespeople understand it. Unless you hear that objection 2 times, unless you hear it twice, ignore it. If you hear it twice, then respond to it. And you say, for example, the room size. Well, there's no furniture in this room, and therefore the room appears smaller. Let's measure the room and see if it's the same as the one at your house presently where your furniture is, something like that. But if you keep responding to objections, see my bottom line there, you're going to breed conflict. This house is too small. No, it isn't. This kitchen is too old. No, it isn't. You're just gonna kind of conflict and bang heads with the buyer. Some people just like to talk out loud. That's fine. Let them do it. But if you can kind of get past that by waiting to hear it twice, or they turn and look you straight in the eye and say something, obviously that's a true objection. But if you manage every objection the first time you hear it, you're going to have trouble, and you won't be able to move forward with the buyer. When you show a house that has a backyard, go all the way to the back as far as you possibly can. The buyers will follow you, don't worry. And then just turn around and perceive the house from the backyard. It's kind of an amazing vantage point. And if I were to ask you, what's more important, a front yard and a backyard, front of the house or the back of the house? Most people will knee-jerk reaction say, hey, the front of the house is more important. But in fact, if you think twice about it, the privacy afforded in a backyard, that's where you're going to lay out in your bathing suit, where your kids are going to play, where you're going to have your garden, where you're going to have your entertaining, all that kind of stuff. The backyard is way, way, way more important than the front yard. A mistake people make when they show houses, we got Mr. Magoo there, is they walk into the house through the front yard, they peek out the back window, they take one step out on the deck. They don't really perceive the house from the very, very back of the property. So make a point to go all the way back, turn around, take a look at the house. Some magical things sometimes happen, especially if neighbors have decks and additions. People can see how their house will be in the future. Sometimes they can even visualize parties and things like that in the backyard if you're smart enough to take them all the way to the backyard. Showing 5, 10, 15, 20 houses to people gets a little bit confusing. They want to continue to move on in their mind. Well, we haven't found anything yet. Let's keep going. Haven't found anything out. Let's keep going. You want to bring them back to the ABC method. And you have this conversation before you go out and show houses. You're going to ask them to rank every house as A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. 1 being the best, or A being the best, B being the second, and C the third. And then if you've gone through 10 or 12 houses and you say, hey, Mr. Johnson, we've gone through 10 or 12 houses, and it looks like that house over on 123 South Washington is still your #1 house. How about if we go out again next weekend and we'll go back and take a look at that house on Washington? Because in fact, the market's not going to get any better. They may have seen the best house on the market in their price range already. And this is a way to keep people focused on the realities of showing properties. I have a rule with buyers. I tell them that if you're more than 15 minutes late when I'm going to show you a house, I'm going to assume that something happened to you and I'm going to leave. Not in a bad way. I'm just going to leave. I don't want to wait around for half an hour. Of course, a $10 million buyer may wait there all day long. But my 15-minute rule it helps me a lot, especially with people I don't know that well yet. They make a point to call me and say, "Are you still there?" If they're running late, and they don't hang me up at houses as many people do, especially if they don't know me and I don't know them, and we're just meeting on the internet for the first time before we go look at a property. Empathy, how to move people forward to make a decision. Two ways to move people forward. One is facts. Hey, I'm going to tell you this information. The second one is empathy. Hey, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate that you didn't want to spend this much money for a house, but it looks like this is the only house that has 4 bedrooms in this entire neighborhood. If you're going to buy a house, I guess you're going to have to pay a little bit more and have a higher payment and buy this house. Empathy will move people forward. If you were Mr. Johnson, you probably heard that, and you think, yeah, I get it. I guess I probably do have to buy this house. So empathy is really important. I know how you feel. I see it from your point of view. Empathy is a skill that you need in order to sell houses. A couple more slides here. When people walk into a property, I'm looking for an emotional reaction, right? I've already determined that buying a house is a 100% emotional decision. Therefore, if someone were to walk into a house and pick up a brochure that has factual information, the taxes, the heat type, the square footage, the age of the roof, all this kind of stuff, it's impossible for them to make an emotional decision. So I'm going to ask buyers when we go through the houses, I'll just say, hey, I'll grab the brochures, I'll keep them free, I'll give it to you when they're done. Please, you just go through and see how you feel about the property. All they need to know again is, do you like this property or not? It's really, really important. A lot of listing agents don't understand that at all. They pile on brochures and seller disclosures and questionnaires and all this other kind of stuff about mortgage payments and things like that. A real no-no as far as being effectively marketing and selling the property. In my opinion, the only place for a brochure about a house is someplace else in order to get them to the house, maybe outside on the sign. But be careful, that will help you be more successful if you eliminate that distraction, essentially, when you're showing properties. Silence is important when you're showing a house. No one, I love this line, no one has ever listened themselves out of a sale. If you want people to tackle the emotional decision of buying a house, then you have to be silent. When someone is deciding if they're going to buy this house, if this is the house for them, they need silence. They may even need to walk away from you. They need you to stare at the ceiling when they're staring at the ceiling. They need you to be quiet. If you can be quiet, they can make a decision. If you have to talk, you're not going to have a decision. Can't be any more clear than that. That's it for this particular program. I hope you appreciate it and play it again, because it really is a good one, and I think you will benefit greatly from this one.